Hi everybody and welcome back to Chee-Tash. My name is Chris, and today I thought I'd do a little bit of an improvisational session going over the book Eloquent, Javascript by Marjan Haverbeek. I know lots of people have requested to continue doing this book, so I thought right now, after having finished Atomic Habits and kind of in limbo about what the next book I'm going to do, I thought maybe I should go back and present and continue with Eloquent JavaScript. So we're going to do that today in a little bit of a interactive session in my IDE VS Code with an example that we actually used in the last video for Eloquent JavaScript, where we talked about try catches, we talked about the finally block, etc., etc. So we're going to come back to that example today. So no PowerPoint. There really wasn't much to really include in the PowerPoint because it's just building off of the last Eloquent JavaScript video that we took a look at. So better to do it through the IDE. And the topic for today is selective catching. Selective catching. So in JavaScript, we don't really have the luxury of Java in that in Java you can catch specific exceptions. So I kind of built upon this another test endpoint that we used last time to create people objects. So you send in somebody with a name, and then you're supposed to get back a 200 response saying, oh, okay, that person's been created. If for some reason, if you don't include name, if you include first name and last name, then we throw an error in that situation. And that can be kind of exemplified here. If the name is not present, then we throw this error and it gets caught down here. And then we go to our custom error handler. This is all in, again, Express. This is Node, Express.js. We send it to our error handler where we add the name manually. And then before we were returning this, I changed this around a little bit. Before we were returning a 200 response with a newly created person with the actual parameters that we want in the JSON. But I changed it a little bit for this exercise because we're going to show how you can, quote unquote, selectively catch. So that's a little bit of a 10,000 foot view of what's happening here. And in Java, you can have multiple catch statements or multiple catch blocks to your try. So in Java, you can specifically say, hey, in this block, I want to catch a null pointer exception. Or in this block, I want to catch a array index out of bounds exception. Or in this block, I want to catch a REST client exception. And you could just keep stacking them and stacking them if you wanted to. And the reason why you would do that is if you wanted to proceed differently depending on the exact exception that you're getting. Like maybe if you do get a null pointer exception for whatever the process is, maybe it's registering a user, right? And you don't get the user's address being input in the form field. Think about when you're signing up for a website or something. Then maybe you want to handle that by kicking it back to the user and saying, hey, you didn't put your address. Please put your address before clicking the next button to go to the next page. But I don't know, if you get like a array index out of bounds exception for whatever reason, maybe you just log that error, say, hey, you input too many references in this form field. That's okay. We're just warning you. We're going to take the first 5 that you input and we're just going to send you to the next page, versus having you restart from the beginning or keeping you on the page until you correct your mistake. So it can be a powerful tool in your application to kind of control the flow of how things go or to handle things very gracefully. Well, in JavaScript, we don't really have that luxury. We can't really selectively catch for specific errors like that. But there are different ways to handle certain errors. Now, one of the ways that you might see here is you can throw these errors, which is something we did last time, but you can specify the exact error message in the constructor here of the error interface. So throw new error, name not included in the request, and then we are just logging that here when it gets returned. It's a 400, so it's a bad request. And that way the user knows, okay, I did not include the address or the name in this example. And I can show you guys what that would look like really quick, just so you see the console there. So if name, for some reason, if I send it as name first, something like this, hey, and then we get this name not included in the request, versus if I do something address first for some reason, and then I send this, we're saying, okay, now address is not included in the request. Why is it saying that? Well, I have another check to see if the address is present. If it's not present, in this method here, or this function, I'm just doing a really quick null check. Same thing we did for name. And if it's not present, then we are throwing a new error with, again, address not included in the request. I changed around the error handler to basically just return the error message and put it as a status of 400, just to give something more meaningful. So I don't think this is bad either. You're still throwing the same error type. This is just the same error constructor, but you're just changing the string that is input in the constructor. And this is fine and this works. You could also, as can be exemplified here in this section, where we are checking if the age is a numeric number. So if you see my function here, we're just checking to make sure that this is an integer and this doesn't come in as a string. So if I go back, let's correct address. Let's do this. So we're just making sure that age doesn't come in like this. And that kind of makes sense. That's not a super meaningful message. Let me change this really quick. Age is not a number. Let me save it. We're going to restart the server. And now let's see what happens. Yeah. Okay, so now we're getting the age is not a number, a little more meaningful error message. But if you send it as not a string is an actual number, so age 24. Now if I do this, yeah, we get the actual person. It's 201 created. This is good. This is good. This is what it should be. And that is what check age is numeric is looking for. So this is good. This is what it should be doing. And this is another way to maybe selectively handle certain errors. Is you don't have to just throw this new error constructor. There are different errors that you can throw. You can throw, let me do like a quick, I know you can throw like a type error. You can throw other sorts of errors. What are the other sorts of errors? Other errors in JavaScript. Internal error, range error. So yeah, you can throw different errors using the same format of throw new, the constructor, etc. I created my own custom error. So I created my own custom error here in a separate file, and then I'm exporting it. And this is just extending error it's really not doing much just besides, hey, just again taking in the message. I get there's a date param or date attribute there too. It's really kind of functions the same thing as error, but I just wanted to show you guys, oh, okay, so this is just a custom error, but it looks a lot like error, doesn't it? And we're handling it in the same fashion as these other ones. If there is an error, we come down to this catch block, we go to the error handler here. We're handling it in the same way. And Mergen talks about another way to handle these is in your catch block, you can actually check for the specific type of error or the instance of an error. So you could do something like in your catch block, you could say if type of error is equal to custom error. Actually, just make sure in the book that's how they are doing this. Oh, okay, so they did it a little backwards. Instance of type error. So it'd be instance of custom error. So we can just say res.status tool1.send handling in a custom fashion. And let's see what happens now. If I do this, what do you guys think should happen? What do you think should happen in this situation? If I do this, right, this is working, right? Everything's matched up properly. We have a name, address, age that's numeric. But now what if I did this? Nice. So do you guys see how this was handled differently by the fact that we selectively caught it? And you can tell that we did that because of the precedence that was set by the other errors. If you guys remember the other errors that we were throwing, if name wasn't present or address wasn't present, we're catching it in the catch block, but then we're sending it to the error handler, and the error handler is creating that response, sending it back to us as a 400. So that off the bat, there's a difference here. This is also just a plain old string, and the error handler is sending a JSON back to us in the response. So there's a few differences there, and the reason why we're seeing that is because in the catch block, we added that if condition that basically says, if we come across a custom error, let's not send it to the error handler. Let's just send it back to the user. And yeah, you could have a little more meaningful expression here or string here. I just put handling in a custom fashion just to make it stand out that yes, we're selectively kind of catching this. So that is another way to handle errors in JavaScript. You would still use this catch block as your catch-all, no pun intended, to catch everything. But then within here, you can have conditions that check for a specific instance of your error if you are throwing different types of errors, and that way you can handle it in whichever way you want it to. You could also maybe check the message. So if custom error was just a plain old error, right? Just like here on line 31 or line 24, then maybe you could do a check for the error dot get message, because the error object, as you can see here, contains a message attribute. Same thing with custom error. it contains a message attribute as well. But you could do an if condition that basically checks like, hey, if error, something like this, if error dot get, or no, would it be this? Error dot, this is basically what I'm looking for. If error dot message is equal to, oh, I don't know. This, hey, just checking, and we don't have a name again, right? So let's rerun this. Let's see if this works. I don't know if this will exactly work. Handling in a custom fashion. Name first. Let's try this. Okay, name not included in the request. But okay, yep. So you see here, guys, you could also do this. I don't know if it's as straightforward or as much of a best practice because it's hard. This message is hard coded. And what if somebody else in your team changes the strings of these error messages and you have to kind of go back and change it in all these other places? So maybe not the best way to, you might be better off extracting this into some sort of like constant variable and then using that here. But anyway, if you guys see, we can also check the error.message if for some reason, if we have just we're throwing a bunch of errors and we want to handle them selectively, you can do a check on the message itself. That way you'll know, okay, this was the error for the name. We want to handle it this way, right? And you can see that it's working because it's printing off line 45 there. So that's going to do it for today, guys. Let me know if you have any questions. Hopefully this was beneficial to you guys, and please stay tuned. I'm still trying to decide. I know the schedule right now with the channel has been kind of thrown off. Podcast 2, I don't have any guests right now lined up. I'm trying to reapproach the podcast versus how I was doing it before with releasing an episode every single week, whether that was a clip or the full interview. Now I'm just not doing the same schedule, so I'll just release the interviews as they happen. And that might mean that it might take some time, like a few months between guests, but I figured it might be better for the guests. That way the interview is getting out right away. Same thing with the channel, still trying to figure out a good book to do, and other things in life are getting busier and hectic, so trying to figure some things out. But stay with me, guys. I'll try to put out as much content as I can, and maybe in the meantime do some more JS videos. I'm also learning Python too, and I really, really enjoy working in Python actually. So thank you guys so much for listening. We'll be back. My name is Chris. This has been Chee-Tash. Take care, everybody.